Hey y'all, so welcome again to another Celo governance call. I'm Yaz. This is Celo governance call number 14. So we have a really exciting proposal for today, and we have with us Alberto and Alex to go over the proposal. So the only item on the agenda for today is CGP 47, airdrop funding for optic bridging Ethereum to Celo. Before we get started, we also have a few proposals currently being submitted. One of them is currently in the approval stage for Mento, and we expect the Celo Real proposal to be submitted, I believe, this week as well.
Yeah, so what
And yeah,
about Grandamento? The two Grandamento proposals?
oh yeah, so there's been also two grant mentor proposals. Let me just pull up my notes. Let's see.
I think it's at the
Yeah,
bottom or
yeah.
something, Grandamento.
Yeah, and we also have two Grandamento proposals. I'm going to copy paste them and add them here as a reference link for folks to keep track of them within the GitHub issue.
And there's one other one. There's a second proposal.
Oh, there's a second one. Let me.
Yeah, it's a C. There's a CUSD one and then a C Euro one.
This one, right? Okay. So that one is going to be also added here. And how do you want to do this, Alex? You want to go over the Grandamento proposals first, and then we jump into CGP 47, or do we kick it off with CGP 47 and then go to the rest?
I feel like Grandamento will be easier, I think.
Okay,
So
cool.
maybe we can start there.
Alrighty.
So, mhm.
Yeah, whenever you're ready, please kick it off.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so a little background around Grandamento and this proposal. So Grandamento obviously went live first like a couple weeks ago, and these are the first proposals. There's a few reasons that this is like being proposed. Number one is like we've heard a lot of interest from like market makers and others who want to use it, but they're like, I don't want to go first. So so it's like, okay, I'll go first. And then the other problem we're seeing is like when we're converting Celo into USD or C Euro, we're using up the bucket, the liquidity buckets, the XY equals K buckets, to the detriment of other users who want to use them, resulting in more slippage for other Celo users using Mento. So by using Grandamento, we sidestep the need to use the normal Mento and thereby give more liquidity and less slippage to users. So those are kind of like some of the initial motivations. The reason for this is just simply that like people want grants in CUSD and C Euro. A lot of the people we're giving grants to, they have expenses to cover. And most of them are denominated in CUS in dollars or euros. And so having that kind of assurance in terms of short-term purchasing power kind of helps them meet their expenses as they fulfill the grant milestones. So those are kind of the impetuses for these two proposals. And yeah, those are the highlights. Yes.
All right,
I guess.
cool. So you want to talk about the second one while I click on it?
Sure. Yeah. So just in terms of the amounts, we decided on 1 million Celo for CUSD and 1 million Celo for C Euro. This is like, there isn't an exact science to this, except that that's kind of like what we expect to be the grant budgets over the next like 2 to 3 months approximately. Again, this depends on a lot of things, right? Because like the payouts depend on milestones. So if a project meets their milestone, like there's going to be more payout, right? If they don't meet their milestone, like less payout. So it's not a super exact science of like, oh, we're going to use this amount in X amount of time for sure. So It's a little bit of a guesstimate of kind of which milestones will be completed over the next 2 to 3 months and needed to be paid out in stable coins, namely CUSD and CEUR. And yeah, that's kind of it's not an exact science in terms of the precise amounts.
Cool. No, I appreciate it a lot. Okay. So, folks, these are the first two Granda Mentor proposals. It's nice to see new Granda Mentor proposals coming through, and as more come through, like using the forum posts and following the template that Alex did would be very useful for the future proposals. Alrighty. Now we're gonna go to CGP 47. All right. CGP 47 is airdrop funding for optics bridging Ethereum to Celo. And this was submitted by Alberto Martin, who's also on the call. And Alberto, you want to kick it off?
Yeah. The basics of this proposal is today when you do a bridge to any other chain, if you go from even Celo to Ethereum, what happens is then you're missing enough to be able to cover for the gas fees, and therefore you're kind of stuck, and then you have to go to an exchange and then get some dust or gas to cover for the gas fees, which it gives you a really bad experience, right? So the idea of this is if you bridge in any asset, whether it's ETH or whether it's Sol or anything through the optics bridge or Polygon, you should be able to get an airdrop to be able to transact doing whatever the time you spend on Celo doing those, rather than having to go and buy some native token to be able to transact. The only other bridge that I've seen that does this is Avalanche, and I think they do it via if you bridge more than what is worth $75 US, they give you enough to actually do, I think, up to almost 10 transactions based on the gas fees. So this is not to fully subsidize the cost of bridging, because at the end of the day, if someone is bridging, they're often large amounts. So it's not like we're going to cover, I don't know, $200 worth of ETH, but rather on gas fees, for example, when the network is congested, but rather is that you will be able to transact for a bunch of days. On the comment section on the forum, I've seen a couple comments, and one of them was, do we want to look forward as an oracle and see if we can actually cover the full amount by estimating. My thought initially was, the answer was no, but I'm happy to hear others, right, through the call and through the forum. And the basic calculation over there is 10, which it will be almost 2 Celo as of today, $10. That is around $250,000 worth of Celo per year.
Cool. And I think one of the outstanding questions that Alberto and Alex you had was about getting community feedback on what do you think would be the right amount, and what kind of allocation looking for from the community fund in regards to this proposal. And I think that would be, unless you have more to say, I think this would be a good time to maybe open it up for anyone on this call. And obviously we can continue the discussion after this call on the forum post regarding what would be a good amount and any kind of feedback anyone wants to give. And with that, I'm opening it up for the rest of the community to give feedback on the proposal. What do you think about the amount, and what would be a good allocation? Anyone has any feedback?
Maybe I'll say if there aren't other feedbacks. I think summarizing kind of feedback we got through this like DeFi for the people is that people were kind of commenting like, hey, it's really expensive to come into the Celo ecosystem and really inexpensive to leave the Celo ecosystem. Because like using optics to go from, for example, Celo to Ethereum, they're just paying, the sender fees, the Celo fees, which are a fraction of a penny, and then the kind of receiver fees on the Ethereum side are extremely expensive. and or sorry, vice versa. So basically, like it's really inexpensive to leave the Celo ecosystem and very expensive to come in, and so like balancing like some of those forces so that we can, more welcome and easily like grow the pie, so to speak, grow the user base coming into Celo, and the liquidity.
Victor, your audio is not coming through. I don't know if it's just me. But yeah.
I had to run my phone, so okay, thank you.
Wait, yeah, no.
Okay. So my first question, I guess, would be like how much is, do we have a good estimate of how much transaction to bridge a certain amount of ETH to Celo would cost? Like in terms of ETH/USD?
You mean the full amount of a transaction?
Yeah, like for the full amount of the gas fees that they have to pay.
When they come in?
Mhm.
Yeah, I tried multiple times just to do some ballpark, and it varied very much from like $60 to $70 all the way to 250, 300, depends if there's any kind of NFT or anything going on in Ethereum that will actually auction, that will actually put the gas fees pretty high. But I've been trying to bridge some stuff and I never saw anything below 40.
And the proposal here basically is to subsidize that by like $10, or like partially subsidize the gas fees or fully subsidize the gas fees for those transactions.
What my intention is not to subsidize the transaction per se, is rather that you don't have to get more Celo to transact, right? Like for example, one of my really bad experiences was I bridged something to Solana, and then all of a sudden it told me, hey, you need at least one Sol to transact. I'm like, dude, I don't have one Sol. I mean, Sol, do you need Sol to transact? And then for 25 cents, I had to go to an exchange to buy one Sol, because exchanges do not sell you less than one Sol. And that's $170 to buy just dust, right? Which is like, dude, that's a lot of money just to be able to transact for 25 cents. So that's the experience I'm trying to avoid. And if we look forward and all of this and the bridge becomes more usable and more successful, I don't want people to have that experience.
Cool, thank you for the question. One question I had is about the allocation. So I brought it up with Alex individually. There's also, and that was brought up to me by the economics team, there's also in the community fund 2 million stellar euro that is not being touched as well. So maybe, as just like a random idea, obviously nobody has to follow through on this, would be maybe using the 2 million stellar euro, or like an allocation of it, and using that in order to help with the transaction fee. Obviously, it would have to be converted to Celo or anything like that, but it will be also an opportunity to utilize another amount within the community fund that is being untouched at the moment. Cool. Do we expect the calculation as well to increase over time, as like, let's say by having this program, do we feel that it would incentivize more people, therefore there'll be more transaction coming in, therefore we would have to subsidize more and more of these transactions? Has that been like, taken into consideration within the calculations?
I added a little bit of buffer on the calculation, but it was more about, because it's a nice user experience, right? Not necessarily the fact that, because if you subsidize, probably you will get more traffic. You subsidize the full amount. But if you're just giving the, I want to transact in Celo type of a scenario, that was my thought behind it. I think Patrick from Curve Labs suggested that actually we should look into potentially fully subsidizing, which then it makes more sense. And yes, more people and more tokens will come. And I do not know yet if that is the first thing we should do. I think the first thing is, in my opinion, is to get get people to have a really nice experience, and then we can determine whether we want to actually incentivize, fully incentivize coming into our chain. But right now, as you have other incentives like the DeFi for the people, is enough incentive for you to bridge. If you're gonna get a nice deal on something like Sushi or something else with a pair of DAI and ETH, then in theory you're already getting that subsidy by getting the percentage. But when those incentives from DeFi for the people go away, then maybe we want to look into some other incentive. That's how I was thinking about it.
So I guess
Cool.
I wanted to
Yeah, go.
try to clarify this one more time. Basically, just so I understand it, and hopefully everyone else can understand this as well. So the goal basically here, as I see it, and the grant of Celo will be used to then be converted to ETH and Sol and Polygon's native token, and basically use that to pay for the gas fees for people to basically complete these bridging transactions. That way, if they're bridging, is that kind of the idea, basically, in order for people to come into the Celo ecosystem?
Yeah, so let me
Okay.
let me explain what happens today. What happens today is when you
Yeah.
leave, you actually get part of the amount fully paid by ETH. But when you come in, there's nothing that it helps you come in. And I am not trying to give the amount that you bring in. Like if you bring, to make things simple, let's say you bring $10,000 worth of Polygon into Celo, and the transaction fees with all of that stuff, and I know Polygon is cheaper, but let's say it's $10. I'm not saying let's pay that person $10 back. I'm saying let's give them potentially $5 or $10 worth of Celo, which is hundreds of transactions as of today's fees, that they can continue in our ecosystem. And then when they want to leave, they already have also a route to be somewhat subsidized to be leaving. One other suggestion, and again, if we look at what could be the next proposal after this, when the DeFi for the people incentives are out of here, then it could be the putting a lock-in into the amount that you get. So if you get an airdrop for, let's say, the $10 or the $50, whatever you transact for, then you have a lock on not being able to actually bridge that back or take it or whatever you want to do for, let's say, 30 days or 14 days. So that way it's not the pure incentive of come in to get an incentive and then leave.
Victor, like one other thing to just comment is like, I think part of this was kind of modeled a little bit after what other bridges are doing. So like Avalanche, for example, like if you send over $75 or something, they'll like airdrop you some of their native token. And so the idea is like with Avalanche and as well, it's not like they're covering 100% of, whatever your fees are. It's like kind of more of a fixed amount of that native token, which subsidizes, right? But it doesn't fully cover. And the other nice thing about that is like, people come in with Celo, right? So regardless of whether they bridge their WETH or whatever it is, like, great, now they have some some Celo to transact, and it's just, it's a nice subsidy and improves the user experience and helps us grow the pie by bringing in more users from other ecosystems.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense. So basically, the part I didn't understand at first, and I guess is really crucial, is that basically this upon bridging to Celo, they'll receive some amount of Celo, which will on the Celo network. They don't receive the tokens on ETH, or they don't receive the token on Sol. They actually receive tokens upon entering the Celo ecosystem. That makes sense.
And I think like this is, again, and Alberto, correct me if I'm wrong, this is for transactions over $50 in dollar value. So this, if you like were to transact like 1 cent, like you wouldn't get this. Alberto, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Like, and I was thinking 50. I know Avalanche is doing this over 75, but I'm happy to think about different amounts. And the reason why 50 is because, given that we're trying to do more DeFi for the people, we're not really trying to attract large amounts. If someone wants to come with a small amount, 50 seems like a reasonable number, which is higher than what they will charge you in Ethereum just for fees of 40, the minimum you can see.
I
Cool,
want to
thank
ask one more time. One thing is still kind of unclear to me, and maybe other people as well, is to see. I don't quite understand how this relates to the user experience problem you were describing before, of basically not having like any Celo or any Sol to pay for basic transaction fees. So how does this solve that problem, that UX problem?
Yeah. If today, let's say I want to go to Binance, right, and I don't have anything on Binance, like without Celo, and I don't have a wallet, I don't have anything on Binance, but I seen that all of a sudden they have 50% yield on 2 stable pairs, right? That is pretty attractive to me as a user to go over there on DeFi. And then what happens is I will say, okay, I have some ETH, let me bridge it over. And when you bridge it over there, all of a sudden you will say, well, now you need a BNB token to be able to transact. And then what happens is you have to go and buy BNB token after you bridge, because it's just stuck on your wallet. You cannot do anything with it. So similarly, if you're attracting new users that never use Celo, which is the goal for a bridge, then they will not have any Celo anywhere. And therefore they cannot do anything else. It will be just stuck on their wallet. They cannot even go to Sushi. They cannot even go to Uberswap and transact. It's just bridge over there. So they have to buy Celo. And then if you think about the experience of buying, let's say $10 of Celo, you go to MoonPay or something else, and then you're charging you fees, and or you go to Coinbase and it's whatever, $10 to buy Celo on just trying to buy dust. And I think that's a bad experience. That's why I'm saying if we give them one Celo, which is again tens, if not hundreds of transactions they can do with that, then they just, the moment the funds arrive, they can automatically start using it. That was, and by the way, if you think about the whole process, imagine you buy $10 from USD into Coinbase, then they have this lockup period that you have 3 or 4 days to be able to use it, right? And then by the time you can use it, all of a sudden all these yields are gone. And then you have to bridge back, and you're like, great, that was a great experience.
Okay, that was really helpful. Thanks for answering my questions. Now I understand this a lot better.
All right. Are there any more questions or feedback or recommendations about like airdrop amount, any input? Toby, I know you're here. I don't want to put you on the spot, but you are, and on the economics team. Do you have any thoughts, maybe?
So I didn't look into too much detail of the proposal, but I generally think it's good and I'm for it. But I'm mainly here for a general question for the community fund. I'm not sure how we allocated the funds in the past. And I wanted to ask if anyone has a good overview, or if we even have some data of exactly how much money we already allocated, and if there's some way that we can like continuously track this. Because if I remember correctly, those were like those multi-sig type of things that the funds remain in the community fund, but they're kind of allocated to be spent by the multi-sig. And I thought it might maybe be good to have an overview over like what's left to be allocated and how much is actually used. Because I guess by just looking at the accounts and the governance proposals, that's going to be like harder and harder in the future if we allocate more money over time.
That is a very good question. So currently the structure that would, and Deepak, you feel free to jump in at least for the CCF as well, is what the multi-sig structure has done in the past is it doesn't move the money directly from the community fund to the multi-sig, but rather the multi-sig itself has like a credit amount or like an expense amount up to that amount that it propose from the community fund, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and that way it would allow for folks to on the multi-sig to withdraw from that amount until they hit their limit of whatever their proposal entailed. But I haven't seen, I don't believe when those proposals pass that specific amount has been moved out, but you're definitely right in the sense that it will be very useful to track it down, and it will be a very good case for figuring out ways to track it down for the future.
Mm-hmm. Maybe also like for transparency for everyone in the community, that you can I don't know what's a good way, maybe a web page or something that's not too much effort for anyone, that it's quickly transparent on what the community fund actually funded.
Yeah, actually,
that would be super cool.
To add, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, to add some color, right? It's just a ERC20 approval. Like, when you go visit like a smart contract and you approve ERC20, like let's say Uniswap, you approve to use some token. So it's exactly that, but doing to the main like community fund address. So you're just getting an approval to spend X amount of Celo. And technically, like you can literally like withdraw it at the same time, right? When you get the approval, but for like, at least from the community's fund one side of things, we don't withdraw it because it's more transparent that we just withdraw it as needed to directly send them the teams and not take it to our account. So it's a good way, like then the community like can stop, like if we do something wrong and community still has a say in like stopping that. But that's how it works.
Do you know, Deepak, if the amount, I'm sorry, I don't want to hijack the discussion of the proposal. I could also like wait with my questions. I just joined later. I don't
It's
even
a
know.
very good question, though. I think we should definitely continue. So go on, Toby.
Okay. Is a scenario possible where we have like 3 million Celo in the community fund and we allow 2 different multi-sigs to spend 3 million in the community fund? Like, can we have some kind of double spending issue there, or is the money that that like the protocol the community approves for multi-sig, is that then basically blocked and cannot be allocated to another multi-sig, like in another proposal again?
Yeah, somebody can double check my technical details, but my assumption is that let's say there was like 3 million Celo in the community fund, and we did like 2 proposals that are giving 3 million each to 2 different multi-sigs. That can still be possible. And then like, then people can start withdrawing money, and then we'll have that race condition in the end. Like, oh, like one community fund multi-sig may have a approval for spending like maybe $2 million maybe 2 million Celo, but there is no 2 million Celo in the fund itself. So that.
Because I think it's super awesome that we start to utilize those funds, but we should probably make sure that we don't allocate then actually more funds than are in the community fund. And I wasn't sure if that's like technically possible.
I can do a roundup of what has been allocated or at least proposed, because I've been tracking it down for one talk I was giving in Lisbon, and that can be something that I can tally up as well. In the hypothetical scenario where like what Deepak painted, where let's say the community fund has 3 million and 2 different multi-sig have an allocation of 3 million, and there's a race to the bottom. I guess at some point like the transaction might either revert or not be approved if it goes lower than whatever in the community fund. Am I wrong in assuming that although the community fund is getting 25% per day from the block reward, you can still technically wait over time until you can hit that sweet spot where you can withdraw that amount? Or am I wrong in assuming
No,
that?
you can wait. Yeah, you can wait.
Okay.
But I think that's not an issue right now, but maybe like once we have many of these like community fund proposals, yeah, we'll get there. So it'll be nice to have like some kind of like page or something that keeps tracking of like, hey, what are all the things that have been approved and what is existing and what remains, right? So then at least it gives a way for the community to see when they're making proposals of where they stand.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about this as well. I almost wonder if like the C Labs accounting and finance team could help with some of like the general accounting for the community fund, just like being very clear about what has been spent, how much has been spent, and just making sure we have kind of a clear tally of the quote unquote decentralized balance sheet.
Yeah, I think that would be. Yeah, go ahead, Deepak.
From our side, we have like a public facing, like at least what we are spending, like a Google sheet that anybody can access. That's how we are keeping track of our accounting, at least for the amount we have been allocated to, right? But it's also nice that there is some kind of like party that actually verifies those things and making sure that like we are all like playing fair.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think even for the Treasury, the intention for the Treasury proposal has been that to be transparent about every transaction that is going through that's been authorized by the multi-sig and what it's going through. But obviously, having like to reiterate what Deepak is saying, having another one audited, at least from the community fund side, to see what's been spent as well would make a lot of sense. And so another thing is, Victor made a comment. I'd love to see a tool that assembled this from on-chain data. It could be based on current approval potential, also introspect ongoing CGP for new approval. I'd love to see that as well. It can also potentially, we can also have potentially like a website for the community fund where this data can be displayed. That can be something interesting that we can also work on.
Maybe a good solution for the meantime would be to just have a forum post where we like have a list of approved allocations of the community fund, that we have like a broad overview. Because I agree the website would be super awesome, but it sounds like a lot of like development effort.
I can get started on a forum post for that. At least if I like the idea to keep it simple, start with a forum post, and then we can improve it as we go along. I'll keep a track of the forum. I'll create a forum post, write down all the different proposals, and talk like at least all the different CGPs. So if somebody created a forum post but no CGP, it's not really, I don't count that because you have to follow the process, right? And so every CGP like that's been proposed, we can do like we can start tracking down what has been allocated and do some back of the envelope math until we have better tooling that can do it more transparently. And potentially I'll talk to the contracts team about being like what is the exact contract address for the community fund, so be able to like track it down better within the forum post.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Cool. So that will be my action item after that. After this call, I'll work on this, and I'll add it to the GitHub ticket, and I'll send it as well in like a community mailing list, and along with any feedback that we can get on CGP 47 itself. Any further comments in regard to CGP 47 or the community fund allocation in general? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I think we're fair to wrap it up right now. There's only one proposal that we went over. Normally we have more than that, but like we also have proposals that are currently in approval stage for the Mento proposal, and I believe Celo Real might either be this week or next week. Hopefully not next week, because next week is Thanksgiving holiday and stuff. But like we'll figure it out. And yeah, so let me stop sharing the screen right now. All right, so I want to thank everyone for joining another awesome governance call. A lot of good feedback over here, and I want to wish you all a good day and take care.
Ooh, quick question. Yes, can like all these proposals, like on-chain proposals, be done with a multi-sig? Do you happen to know?
Which proposals specifically?
So like at Celo CLI, like propose, like exchange proposal, like can all of them be done on a multi-sig or?
For the Grandamento proposal? Yeah, I think Victor's saying yes, yeah.
Cool. All right. Nice. All right. Thank you.
All right, y'all. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.